Well, Amy, you brought up a lot of interesting points on that one. You put a lot of thought into this this week, apparently.
Yeah, it's just there's so many, and it's anything but talking about their own god. That's all I can think about last night.
Well, this week we were treated to, we got to see a Matt Dillahunty debate, and we got to see a debate with Sal versus T-Jump. And the Dillahunty debate, for those of you who watched it, was pretty, of course, Matt Dillahunty won the debate clearly. The other guy's whole spiel was basically, it would really suck if there wasn't a God. Life wouldn't have meaning. Life wouldn't have purpose. Therefore, I really, really want there to be a God. So therefore, there really, really must be a God. Just because you really want it to doesn't mean that's the way that it is. And then we had in the Sal debate, which kind of got our minds flowing towards the God of the Gaps being a starting point for tonight's discussion, because that was basically where the entire debate stood around. God of the Gaps. There are things we don't know. There are questions still to be answered. And then, of course, we step in right next to that with the argument from incredulity fallacy. And that's to say, I don't think that science or naturalism on its own will ever be able to solve any of these problems. Therefore, God. We don't know that science will never be able to solve these problems. In fact, science so far has solved every single problem with pure naturalism. It's never found any type of magic. It's never needed magic of any kind. We've never come across anything that we just couldn't explain, and we needed to invoke a god. But if you want to bet that origin of life, origin of the universe, that's the exception. We've chased God away from everybody else, everywhere else, but you'll never be able to chase him away from those two. Well, you could stick with that if you want, but I don't think it's going to hold up good over time. Humans have had superstitions, humans have had questions all throughout time. And era, a lot of them really didn't have any good answers. If you go back even 200 or 300 years ago, uh, God was in everything. There were so many things we didn't understand in the natural world without a God. Even in the age of sail, in the 1700s, which we kind of think is approaching the modern era, the sailors on ships, they used to keep the compasses in a special box called a binnacle, and that's because the sailors were afraid of it. It was weird. This thing that automatically points north. We have no idea why it always points one direction. It's it's freaky. It scared a lot of them, but it worked. So they kept it on the ships. They used it because it works. Didn't understand it. Scared the hell out of a lot of them. Uh, and they're looking at scientific theories like evolution, like the Big Bang, where there are pieces missing, there are things we don't know, there are open questions to be debated, and they're assuming that these questions in there invalidate the theory on its own. And then they're going to shoehorn in you know their Bronze Age book, which has a completely different take on everything. But what's interesting is you don't even really have to get that far, because if you can invalidate their religion on its face, if you can show that it is completely invalid, then you don't even need to address any of these arguments. That's the beautiful thing, because I don't have to know exactly how a biogenesis happened to know that your solution, your God, does not exist. Therefore, we exist. So it had to happen somehow. And I'm guessing that they will eventually figure out that answer, but I'm content to wait and not make up deities to get around things we don't yet understand. And, and that's like our good friend Smokey Saint. He has a phrase that he likes to kick around called naturalism of the gaps. He's taking his own logical fallacy and trying to turn it around on us and say, well, you guys just assume naturalism will explain all these things. And that's a pretty good assumption to make because it's always worked so far. It works 100% of the time. Naturalism works. Theism doesn't work. We've never had a testable prediction made through theism. We've had many thousands made through naturalism. It's just, it's what works. I'm sorry, guys, if you don't like it. And I've said this before. If you just want to be a Christian and you want to go to church and you want to hold your beliefs, you know, okay, but what are you doing here looking into it? You're not going to like what you find because the internet is where religion goes to die. This channel is where religion goes to die. And I think that's about all I have for right now, Amy.
And I would agree with that.